Hello, welcome to More Yoga with me, Emily. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you are feeling well, or at least well enough to join me today. So, thank you for coming. Um, Today, we are going to do variations of pigeon pose. It's not necessarily one that I teach all that often, but just because I think that it's over taught. Um, and it seems to be like the hip opener that everyone goes to. And I like trying different things. But what we're going to do is try lots of different hip openers today that are very similar to pigeon, and then we'll build our way up to pigeon pose or pigeon prep anyway, not the full pigeon with the back bend and the foot grab. Although, if that's in your wheelhouse, you are welcome to go for that one. Me, not so much. Um, Blocks are going to be useful today, if particularly once you're in pigeon, if like back hip is lifted, or maybe, I don't know. They're always useful, I find. You may or may not use them. Or a pillow or something like that, if you don't have a block. Anyway, let's start lying down. So, depending on how your day has been, maybe it feels good to be still right away. Maybe you need to take some time to let your body settle, get some wiggles out, or a yawn. You might have your legs outstretched today. See how that feels on your low back. If it feels a little bit tight, you could bend your knees and bring your feet a little bit wider than your hips, maybe even mat width apart, and let your knees hang in toward each other. Maybe you feel like going into a bit of a adductor or groin stretch and take the soles of the feet together, knees wide in a butterfly position. Wherever you are, take a little loop of your shoulder blades toward each other on your back, just so the heart and the chest open up a little bit more. And then for 3 breaths, inhale through your nose. Exhale, sigh your breath away. Couple more. And then with each exhale, let your body melt just a little bit deeper into the earth. Start to draw your focus to your breath, really noticing your inhale and your exhale. Notice how your breath is flowing, if it feels really open and spacious. Or maybe you notice some sticky or choppy spots along the way. In which case, you might gently try to lengthen through those parts just to smooth your breath out a little bit more. But there's no need to control the breath here. As much as possible, try to breathe naturally. And that's sort of a funny thing to say because as soon as we draw our focus to the breath, generally it will start to slow down, but you don't need to force it. Last few moments here. And then start to bring a little bit of movement back to your body. Whatever way feels best for you. Maybe a big yawning stretch or little wiggle of your fingertips or toes or gentle rock of your head from side to side until you feel ready to draw your knees into your chest and take a little rock here from side to side. And then take one hand to each knee, and let's start to draw a big circle. So take your knees out wide and then down towards the bottom of your mat and draw the knees back through the center of the body and then out again. So these big open circles starting to mobilize through the hips a little bit because, well, pigeon pose is a hip opener. And let's go the opposite direction. So down towards the bottom edge of the mat, around and up toward the shoulders, back down through the center of the body line. So a few more of these. And then start to freestyle. Maybe you shake out the legs a little bit. Okay, and then bring your feet to the floor. Keep your knees bent this time. So figure four stretch essentially is a very similar stretch to pigeon pose, at least for the front hip. So cross your right ankle over top of the left thigh. Take a little flex of those right toes back toward your shin. This might be where you want to stay. If you'd like to deepen it, then maybe you bring a block underneath that left foot, right, just to raise it up a little bit. Or maybe you start to draw your legs towards you. You could use the muscles of your core, or maybe you interlace your hands on the back of that thigh. You could rock a little bit from side to side. So sometimes different angles on that outer hip feel, more or less interesting than others. And if you find somewhere that feels, I'm not going to say good, but certainly interesting, pause there for a few breaths. Because we all have different muscular tightnesses from one side to the other, even. You might find that you need a totally different variation on your left side than you do on this side. Last breath here. Okay, slowly, gently release the bind on your legs, shake them out a little bit, and then we'll switch sides. So we'll cross the left ankle over top of the right thigh. Keep those left toes flexed back toward your shin, right? Just to protect the ankle joint. Maybe you gently start to lift up that right foot. You could bring a block or a pillow underneath there. Maybe you draw your legs towards you a little bit more. You could rock a little bit from side to side, right? You don't have to use your hands here. Or maybe you choose to interlace your hands on the back of that right thigh or even over top of the shin if you wish. And then find a position or, a moment where you can be still for a few breaths. Last couple of breaths here. And then gently unwind your legs, shake it out a little bit. And then draw your knees into your chest. You might start to rock and roll up and down your spine here. You could grab the backs of your thighs. You might go shoulder blades to sit bones, or you could roll to one side and press yourself up. But let's meet on hands and knees. So setting up with your knees underneath your hips. Toes can be tucked or untucked. Hands outer shoulder width apart or wider. Nice spread of the fingers wide. On your inhale, lift the tailbone to the sky, hollow through the lower back, broaden through the collarbones, and then exhale, round through the spine. Tuck your tailbone under, press the floor away from you. Inhale to dip the belly, almost pull yourself through your hands, and exhale, press the floor away. So a few more of these undulations. And as always, if it feels like there's some other natural movement that would feel really good here, then start to add on a little wiggle of the tail from side to side, maybe, or barrel rolls through the chest. Just going where you need to go. And then on your next inhale, come back to center. Now you're welcome to stay here, moving through cat and cow if downward facing dog isn't where you need to be today. Otherwise, join me, tuck your toes. Exhale, lift the hips up and back into downward facing dog. Now, bend your knees deeply to start with, maybe even so much that your belly can rest on the upper thighs. And I want you to start to press the floor away from you with your hands. Spread the fingertips wide. Send the weight more into the fingertips and out of the heels of your hands. And then start to reach your sit bones towards the top of the back wall. So rather where the back wall meets the ceiling. From there, maybe you start to straighten the back of the legs a little bit. Your knees might never, ever, ever straighten out in downward facing dog. Your heels might never reach the floor, and that's totally fine. The idea is to maintain this long line through the spine. Last couple breaths. Just really getting into the calves and the hamstrings here. And then bend your knees. Look forward. On your exhale, make your way to the top edge of your mat into a standing forward fold. Feet about hip width apart. You might choose to sway a little bit from side to side. You could clasp opposite elbows with hands. You might choose to rest your elbows on your knees or thighs for a little bit more support today. Go wherever you need to go. If you have blocks, you might choose to bring them underneath your hands just to bring the floor up to you. Last couple of breaths. And then release your hands with your fingertips to your shins or blocks or the earth. Inhale, little partway lift, belly button to spine. Exhale, let it all go. Couple more, just like that. When you lift up, try not to look forward. Right? Keep the back of the neck long so that we're not increasing tension through the cervical spine. And then bend your knees. Head heavy, arms heavy. Slowly start to roll up to standing. One vertebra at a time. As slow as you need to go. Until eventually you come all the way up. Take a couple loops of your shoulders. Up, back, and down. A little wiggle, noodle, or release. All right, feet hip width apart. Little bend in the knees. Bring your hands to your hips. Let's just do some easy hip circles. First one direction, and then the other. And then maybe a little twist from side to side. Just loosening up. Shake it all, the legs. Like really shake. Even if you feel silly. Sometimes feeling silly is good. Well, if you know me, I like feeling silly. Okay, come on back to the top edge of your mat. Let's get a little bit of blood flow up. And inhale, sweep the arms up to the sky. Exhale, melt to your forward fold. Fingertips to shins, inhale, little partway lift. Exhale, fold. Bend your knees, plant your hands. Inhale, hop, step, or float back to plank. Exhale, lower all the way to the earth. Little wiggle of your hips from side to side. Untuck your toes, press the tops of the feet into the floor, so much so you feel your kneecaps lift away. Send your tailbone to the back wall. Feel your belly button engage toward your spine. Inhale, reach your heart forward and up, baby cobra. Back the neck stays long. Imagine that you're trying to support an orange between your chin and your chest. So if you lift up, orange is gone. Exhale, lower back down. A couple more of those. And the higher you lift up, try to keep that orange there. And the next time you come back down, plant your hands, tuck your toes. Exhale, lift up and back to child's pose. Hands and knees, or downward facing dog. Bend your knees, look forward. Exhale, walk, step, or hop to the top edge of your mat, standing forward fold. Inhale, little partway lift. Exhale, fold. Charge your legs. Inhale, sweep all the way up to the sky. Exhale, right back down to the earth, forward fold. Inhale, little partway lift. Exhale, fold. Bend your knees, plant your hands. Inhale, hop, step, or float back to plank. Exhale, lower all the way or partway to the earth. Inhale through baby cobra, or maybe upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. One breath here. Bend your knees, look forward. Exhale, walk, step, or hop to the top edge of your mat. Inhale, little partway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, sweep all the way up to the sky. Exhale right back down to the earth. One last round. Inhale, little partway lift. Exhale, full. Bend your knees, plant your hands. Inhale, hop, step, or float back to plank. Exhale, lower all the way or partway to the earth. Inhale through your back bend. And exhale, downward facing dog. Bend your knees, look forward. Exhale, walk, step, or hop to the top edge of your mat. Inhale, little partway lift. Exhale, fold. Charge your legs. Inhale, sweep all the way up to the sky. Exhale, hands to prayer. And shake it out a little bit. Whew, and release. Awesome work. Okay, let's just come down to seated. Sit however you want. Yeah, sometimes we do these fancy yoga transitions or we try to fit it all into a flow, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, keep your left leg maybe extended in front of you. You can keep it really active, or you can bend the knee, but why don't you see where we're going first? So spine long, take hold of your right ankle or foot. Now, option one is to stay here, just kind of rocking a little bit from side to side. Now, even if that is a bit too much tension, if you bend, keeping that leg straight is the first option. Starting to bend that knee, maybe you go lean back a little bit more, or maybe you keep that leg extended while leaning back, right? And maybe you start to kind of mobilize a little bit more. Keeping that spine, oof, my language is weird today. Keeping your spine long. Maybe you pause here, just drawing that shin in toward you, right? Again, it might be down on your thigh. Maybe you're able to wrap your forearms around your shin and really draw it in. But a couple breaths, spine long. That can feel quite deep, especially if you haven't done something like this in a while, which I haven't. So, whoo boy, last couple breaths. And then slowly, gently release, shake it out. Let's switch sides. So right leg stays long. Left ankle might just cross over top. Maybe start to grab that ankle and foot. Take a little rock from side to side, or you could draw circles here. Maybe you start to deepen it, leaning back and taking that little rock. Maybe you're able to wrap your forearms around the shin. If so, awesome. If not, don't worry about it, right? You can still hold on to it however feels best for you. Last couple breaths here. Try to keep the spine long as much as possible. Part of it will depend on, your arm length to your shin length. Sometimes it wants to make you round forward. Last couple breaths. So this is basically pigeon, right? On the lifted leg, but you're not getting as much through the back leg or the lower leg. All right, slowly, gently release, shake it out a little bit. Let's take a little windshield wiper of the knees. And then make your way back to hands and knees or downward facing dog. Bend your knees, look forward. Exhale, walk, step, or hop to the top edge of your mat. Inhale, little partway lift. Exhale, fold. Charge your legs. Inhale, sweep all the way up to the sky. Exhale, release. Hands to prayer. Shake it out a little bit. All right, so what we did, seated, right? That sort of little seated variation of pigeon, we're going to try standing. Now, this might get wobbly and shaky. It's okay. It's just yoga. It doesn't matter. So if you have a wall nearby for a little bit of extra balance, maybe not a bad idea, or even a chair. So let's try it. I'm going to send all the weight into that right leg. Little buoyancy on that supporting knee. Belly bend to spine. And then pick up the left leg. Shake it out a little bit. And then cross your left ankle over top of the right side. So option one is a standing figure four, right? Really great option. You're still getting the opening on that left hip. You're still getting the supporting work on that right leg. Maybe you start to grab that left ankle and knee. You might not rock a little bit from side to side. maybe you start to draw it in. Some of you maybe have some sort of bind here. You can see I'm rounded, so I'm going to back out of that. I want spine long wherever you are. So this is a bit more like pigeon, right? The reclined pigeon. Imagine that we were on the floor, right, and bowing down over top of that front leg. Last couple of breaths. Okay, slowly, gently release. Shake it out a little bit. Maybe release those stabilizers on the right side. And then we switch sides. So over to the left. Take your time getting into it because we haven't done a lot of balance prep. Pick up the right leg. Shake it out a little bit. Maybe on this side, you choose to do figure four. So crossing that right ankle over top of the left thigh. Bend the supporting knee, hips back. Right. Spine long. Or maybe you start to pick up that right leg. Keep that little micro bend on the supporting knee, but the hips aren't going to be back as much, right? Maybe you start to draw it in. Maybe you play with some sort of bind and you think, no, if my spine is rounding, I'm going to try and stay long instead. Last few breaths here. Wherever you are, whether you're in standing pigeon or standing figure four. Whoa, the balance. Okay, and then slowly, gently unwind, shake it out a little bit. Let's do some hip circles. Okay, how do you feel? I can't hear your answer, but hopefully you're feeling like we're ready to go into pigeon on the floor. So come on back to the top edge of your mat. Inhale, sweep your arms up to the sky. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, little partway lift. Exhale, fold. Bend your knees, plant your hands, come down to hands and knees. Little wiggle from side to side. Okay, take your right knee and I want you to bring it forward and out to the right, almost so that your right knee is wider than your right hand. Okay, now this front shin can be on whatever angle it needs to be on so that you can get into pigeon. Never, ever, ever feel like that front shin has to be parallel with the top edge of the mat. Okay, that just creates quite a bit of torque on your knee joint. From here, walk that back leg in and back a little bit. And then maybe you start to hug the legs toward each other to come up. Maybe balancing here feels good. Or if you have a block or a pillow, you could bring it underneath that front hip, right? And then squeeze the bum a little bit on the back leg. Just getting into the hip flexors on that back leg a tiny bit before we bow down. You are welcome to stay here. Or maybe you start to fold forward over top of that front shin. And it might be just a little bit. It might be a lot of bit. Try to find a little bit of a lift through the hips, not so that you're hugging the legs back toward each other slightly, right? You're not pushing that back leg away from you. Almost kind of draw it back in toward you, just a little bit. And stay as high or go as low as feels good for you. But then think about what you're thinking about. And as soon as we get into these sort of quite deep hip openers, and when we bow our head forward, right, when we think no one can see our face, that's when the thoughts start to go a little bit crazy, a little bit wild. So try to calm the mind, come back to the breath. Maybe even a single point of focus for your eyes here can help steady the mind. Last two breaths here. Okay, slowly back out of the hips a little bit, and then just shift your weight over to the right and swing that left leg forward. I should have said at the very start that if pigeon prep is not where you want to go, then 1990 is a good place instead. So, how about on the left side? We bring the left shin forward. Maybe you're in 1990. Sorry about that. You can rewind or pause and do that. Or with that left knee out wider than your left hand, start to sweep the right leg back behind you. And then walk it in and back. And then hug the legs toward each other. Maybe to find that little bit of lift here. You can use your fingers for support. Maybe you hover. Maybe you bring a block underneath that front hip. Or even, right, underneath that back hip as well, through the front of the hip. Make sure, though, that by lifting up, you're not cranking into the low back. So a little squeeze of the bum on the back leg. Again, option to stay here, or maybe you start to fold forward. Front shin can be on whatever angle it needs to be on. Maybe this side you stay up a little bit higher, maybe you go quite a bit deeper. And again, it doesn't matter. You don't ever have to do the same depth or the same variation from one side to the other. Can you slow the mind down? Find your breath. Maybe one side you feel it more on the front hip. Maybe on the other side you feel it more on the back hip flexors, even while you're bowed forward. Who knows? Only you do. Last couple breaths here. Okay, and very slowly back out of the depth. Shift your weight to the left enough that you can swing that right leg forward. Shake out the legs, or a little windshield wiper of the knees, and then make your way down onto your back. Take your feet mat width apart once you're down, and then let's do a windshield wiper of the legs here. So just getting a little bit of internal rotations, a little bit of a counter stretch after all that external rotation. And the next time your knees are over to the left, pause there. You might stay here. You might choose to hook the left ankle over top of the right knee. Again, just getting a little bit of that counter stretch to pigeon. If your ankle is hooked, unhook it, and then come back to center, little windshield wiper from one side to the other. And then the next time your knees are over to the right, pause there. Again, this might feel like it's enough for you on that left leg. Maybe choose to hook the right ankle over top of the left thigh. Last couple breaths. And then gently unhook the legs, come back to center, release however you need to. And if there's anything else you feel like you need before your rest, it could be a posture, meditation, breath work. And feel free to go where you'd like to go. Otherwise, let's start to find the pose of rest. And that could be flat on your back, legs bent or straight in Shavasana. You could rest on your side or in child's pose or a seated meditation, wherever you need to be. And there's certainly no rush to get there, but once you have found your pose of rest, for 3 breaths, inhale through your nose. Exhale, sigh your breath away. Couple more. And then let go of your breath control. Return to your natural breath. Notice if you're holding any less muscle gripping or tension. If so, Can you let that go a little bit more as well? With each exhale, let your body melt a little bit deeper into the earth. And stay here longer if you can, 5 or 10 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me today. Namaste.